All right, bull runners, welcome back to the channel. So if I sound a little stuffy, got a little plugged nose, so ignore the sniffles. Let's focus on what's happening in the crypto news, what's happening with XRP. This is a game changer right now. We're going to get into the charts for XRP versus Bitcoin, comparing what happened back in 2017 during XRP's last massive bull run where it surged over 77,000%. And we see what happened with Bitcoin during that time frame. Over the course of 300 days, surged 1,500%. And how people were panicking, they were freaking out for over 500 days, nearly 2 years before XRP took off. And so we're talking about the simple moving average over a 4-year period. We're talking about Bitcoin stock to flow model as well too. We're also talking about the Mayer multiple price bands on where Bitcoin's at, because we need to study Bitcoin to understand what's going to happen with XRP from a liquidity perspective, and also Standard Chartered, what their price prediction is for Bitcoin by 2024, over $120,000. And then we're going to dive into all that news that you guys need to know about the crypto space right now. So let's dive into it. Comment 777 if you're feeling blessed. We posted this on the community section to see what people are the most bullish on. And you can only hold one. Let me know in the comments below. Is it Bitcoin? Is it Ethereum, XRP, Shiba Inu, or something else? I know a lot of people out there bullish on all of these, but XRP is the clear winner by 65%. Why is that? I think the answer is obvious. Comment 777 if you're feeling blessed. Comment 777 if you're feeling bullish. If you're going to become the first millionaire in your family tree, confirm it by smashing that subscribe button. Let's run it. All right, bull runner. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at XRP to the US dollar price chart, and then we're going to compare that to Bitcoin to the US dollar price chart, going all the way back to August of 2015, and then some key points that I see on the MACD indicator as well on why I personally believe there's going to be a massive breakout here soon to the upside. Now, again, this is not financial advice. Don't buy, don't sell anything I'm going to talk about, but I want to show you data that you need to know. So watch all the way to the end of this video. I'm going to break down a lot of charts for you because my opinions are formulated based on data and based on facts, based on math, and then obviously some gut instinct in there as well too. But let's say you have a bad meal for the day, you know, your gut might not be feeling that good if you ate some Chick-fil-A, so your gut instinct might be based on that fried spicy chicken. You know, it might be a spicy instinct, but it might not be the correct one. So as good as those Chick-fil-A sandwiches are, they're not the healthiest things for you. So don't rely on your gut, rely on math. Let's look at math. So Bitcoin to the US dollar right here, 550 days, Bitcoin rose 650% right here from the bottom back in 2015, okay? So we're looking at August 2015, it rose 650%. Now XRP during that time did nothing, dropped 50%, and this was 550 days. This was a frustrating point. Everyone didn't really care too much about XRP, and this was considered, you're considered an idiot for holding XRP this long. Very similar to where we are right now, you know, on how long of a time frame we've been in a downtrend for XRP. It's been, what, 821 days. 821 days, so even longer than that. And so dropping 50%, but then after that, for 334 days, XRP rose 77,000%. Now, for XRP to rise 77,000% again, that would be a massive amount of liquidity in the markets, because you have to look at market cap. You can't just use this scenario where it's going to be the one world currency and all the money's going to move into XRP and this hopeful dream state. Now, even if that happens, that would be cool, but here's what we need to look at here, because with Bitcoin rising over the course of 300 days, 1,500%, this is where a lot of people start diving into the altcoin space after this bull run was over, and we saw the drop down to, you know, $3,000. Then we saw the meme coin craze take place from, you know, 2019 all the way to the top of November of 2021, but XRP's bull run was cut short in April of 2021. So what we're looking at here as well too on the RSI for XRP to the US dollar is we see right now XRP is sitting at 48, and it's not in, you know, oversold territory too much to the degree that it's below 30 or anything like that. It's kind of right in the middle, but the most important indicator that I'm looking at right now in comparison to the past is the MACD. Now, the MACD is very interesting because if I move my camera right here, you guys can see that there's the histogram, the signal, and the MACD line. So if I were to zoom in on this for you so you understand what I'm looking at here, is the histogram. Okay, the signal line is in orange right here. You see the MACD in blue. Anytime that the blue MACD line is above the orange signal line, we're in an uptrend. When it rotates and it flips right here that you can see, that's when the bears are taking over drastically, and we see the momentum shift as well too, where the histogram drops into the negative. So anytime the histogram is in the positive, we're bullish. Anytime it drops in the negative, we're going into a bearish market. So as you can see right here on June 18th, or June 1st of 2018, right at this phase right here, we went into a bear market and Bitcoin dropped from, no, this was XRP. It dropped from 80 cents all the way down to 88 cents right here. And then once the bottom was in March of 2020, March 1st, during the pandemic, we saw the histogram almost getting to the point where it was reaching zero. So we saw the momentum shift as well too. So while the bears were continuously selling off, we saw the momentum change from dark red to light red, and it start to drop, right? So it gets closer to zero, and then we saw a flip, a key shift here, where when the blue line, which is the MACD line, is below, this is all you need to know, okay? When the blue line is below the signal line right here, we're in a bear market. When it flips, it's a momentum shift. It's a liquidity shift. Money starts flowing back in the market, and sure enough, right here, when we saw that momentum shift, we saw the histogram flip, go into the positive, the signal line, right? The MACD line crossed above the signal line, and we went into bullish momentum. Sure enough, we saw this massive rally for XRP. And then what happened here? Well, the momentum was cut short. We saw the lawsuit take place back in 2020. The volume that came in from this point to this point right here was from overseas, the Asian region, and over in China and Japan and all those other countries, because the United States, right, is delisted on Coinbase and other United States exchanges. So that was one final push of liquidity during this massive rally for Bitcoin, during this stage, all the way over here that you guys can see, where we saw Bitcoin see massive liquidity growth upwards of almost 70K. And so XRP was just seeing the after mention of that. Regardless of the SEC, it goes to show how much power there is overseas in the crypto markets over in, Japan, China, Middle East, Dubai, all of those areas. And so when we see right here, we saw the MACD line flip below the signal line. The orange is now above in a bear market. And what are we seeing right now? What is happening right now? They're flipping. They're flipping again. And so you see the momentum shift, right? From bearish, dark red, right here. This is where I'm looking. Bearish, dark red. Now it's light red. It's pink. And it's right at zero. And they're flipping. What does that mean? I'm not a rocket scientist here. I look at data based on the past. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to do something like this. We could bobble around here for a little bit. But eventually, I feel that we're going to go up. And here's why. I'm going to explain why, okay? And so my theory is that we're going to flip into the positive. And so the MACD line in blue is going to cross above the signal line in orange. The histogram is going to turn into the positive. XRP, I could be wrong here, but let me know your guys' thought, is going to see a rally because of Bitcoin. Look at what's happening in Bitcoin on the MACD. And it's the moving average convergence divergence. I know that might sound complicated, but you just need to look at what happened in the past, and that could give you an idea of what could happen in the future, not 100% obviously, but look at the past when we saw the histogram flip from positive to negative right here. Well, Bitcoin dropped from, almost 20K down to 3K. When it bottomed out, that was at the bottom right here at 3K. Then we saw the histogram. If I were to zoom in more for you guys so you can understand where we're at and where we're looking here, right? You see the MACD line in blue drop below the signal line, signaled that the bears were taking over. We saw the momentum take place, and it just go dark red, right? Negative all the way down to negative 700 plus. And then once the bottom was in right here, what did we see happen? Well, we saw the MACD, right, cross above the signal line, and we saw this short-term temporary 2019 rally. Now, that 2019 rally was short-lived because it turned back around again. We kind of bobbled around here for a little bit until after COVID, and then we saw this massive run-up, massive shift, and then across down below, of course, FTX, Celsius, Voyager, all Terra Luna collapse, everything collapsing right here. And then that's when we saw this massive shift all the way down to negative 4,000 on the histogram. So when was the best time to accumulate? Right here. This was the best time to accumulate. Now, when is the second best time to accumulate? Right here. And here's why. You can see for the first time on the monthly, candle close right here, we can see in July, July right here, coming upwards of August, if we stay in the positive for the green and we don't see Bitcoin just absolutely fall apart in the green, what does that mean? Well, it means everything's shifting. It means everything's shifting, momentum shifting. Also, when we look at the MACD line in blue, it just crossed above the signal line. So it's a momentum shift, liquidity shift, money's flowing back in the market. And here's why. Let's talk about it. It's because of what's happening over here. And I'll get into it in a little bit, but first I want to give you guys these charts, and I want to show you where the money is moving right now. Because if we look at the simple moving average, 1,458 days, it's the 4 years. It shows this blue line, as you can see right here. Historically, Bitcoin's price has gone down to it in a bear market. And you can see all the way back here if I zoom in, and it's hovered around it. Dipped down below it briefly, August of 2015, then hovered around it, bounced off of it as support, and resumed the uptrend from there for the bull market. The time after that, where it dipped down to it, was all the way, if I move my camera, it didn't quite come back down to it, but it was December of 2018 when Bitcoin was around $3,000. Almost came back down it again, $3,375, and then rebounded out of there. And the last time that it was down was around COVID, right? March of 2020 on the 4-year moving average. So this is a macro moving average as a support line that we needed to look at. Now, one thing that was interesting right here is it went down drastically below it in November for the low. And so it just recently bounced off of it in June of 2023, and it's currently above it right now. So yes, there could be another dip down to it, but I personally believe that if it dips down to it, that would be the last great accumulation zone around $25,000 to $26,000 for Bitcoin and your favorite altcoins. Now, again, don't buy at that price point. That's just the 4-year moving average to look at right there as one final dip before beaches the moon, baby. Also, looking at Bitcoin stock to flow model life chart, this shows the days until the next halving, 1,400 to 0. And as you guys can see, based on the past, anytime that we've been, if I zoom in right here, just look at the color schematics right here and look at where we're at in terms of price, right? We're at dark green. So in terms of time until the Bitcoin halving, well, 280 days, 5 hours, 11 minutes, 39 seconds. Okay, this is the Bitcoin halving clock that we're looking at right here. And so if it's 280 days and I go all the way back to right here, well, where would 280 days be? It'd be dark green, almost turning to blue. Okay, dark green, almost turning to blue. Look on the right-hand side where my mouse is right here on the stock to flow, 200 to 400. Now let me refresh the page, and we'll show you based on the past where we were for that stage right there. Dark green turning to blue. 2019 was a little bit of a wild card, though, right here, because we could technically be at the end of this rally, though, too. But the chart is showing otherwise. The chart is showing otherwise. And if we refresh here, I think we're more so in line with what happened back here in 2015. I believe this is where we're at right here. We're at something more like this, where dark green turning to blue is when Bitcoin was at like $200. We saw Bitcoin rally up to the stock to flow and correct one more time, and then kind of hover sideways for an extended period of time until 2016, and then blast out of there when it turned blue. So after the halving, so up until the halving, it's going to be volatile. Before then, this is what it looked like right here, you know, where we rallied all the way up, corrected a little bit, consolidated sideways, and then once it turned blue is when we went into the bull run. So the best time to accumulate Bitcoin is obviously when we're, you know, at this color right here, when we're at like a light green, you know, 600 to 800 days until the next halving. But the second best time is right before it turns blue, and that's where we're at right now. And so that's another key thing to look at. Also to look at right here are the Mayer multiple price bands. And so we could just see based on the color, there's oversold, bearish, bullish, bullish extension, overbought, and price. And so where we are right now for Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin's sitting at, let me go to the chart real quick and show you this. And so if we're looking at Bitcoin's price, Bitcoin's sitting at $30,417. So $30,417 is what? You know, we're at bearish, roughly bearish. Yeah, we're bearish right now, a little bit above bearish. And so we're not quite in oversold, but we're a little bit above bearish. So oversold would be $13,000 right here. Bearish is $27,000. Bullish is $42,000. Bullish extension is $69,000. And overbought is $112,000. So because Bitcoin didn't reach $112,000, do you feel that that will be the next overbought zone that Bitcoin will go into upwards of 2025? I personally believe so. I don't think Bitcoin will go to, you know, 300K or 500K like everyone predicts. I think Bitcoin will top out between 100 and 200K, somewhere between there. Everyone just wait and see for the price predictions. Once the price predictions start getting so crazy, it usually tops out before then, just like it has every single bull run cycle. Everyone was claiming Bitcoin was going to 100K, topped out right before 70K. this next bull run cycle, people are going to probably claim it's going to 250K. It might top out at 130K. It might even top out a little bit under that. We don't know. Nobody knows. Anyone says that they know the answer to that is lying to your face. But Standard Chartered is boasting a 2024 Bitcoin forecast to $120,000. How would that affect XRP? Well, when we look at Bitcoin's price right now, just do some simple math. 30, 60, 90, 120, up to 160 is a 4 to 5x. And so XRP currently holds 4 to 5% of Bitcoin's market cap. So if XRP just does what Bitcoin does in terms of liquidity growth and still holds the same market cap in terms of percentage, because it's 4 to 5% of the 590 billion, XRP's market cap is 24 billion. Well, that would be what? 4 to 6x for XRP. That could be. And so that's on the conservative scale. If Standard Chartered's prediction comes true, Bitcoin goes upwards of 120K, 4 to 5x, not too bad. I mean, that's better than most asset classes out there. And so that's why personally I believe in XRP. Now on July 10th, the value of the top cryptocurrency Bitcoin could reach 50K this year and 120K by the end of 2024. They said this on today, predicting the recent jump in its price could encourage Bitcoin miners to hoard more of the supply. Now we're going to look at miner capitulation data as well too. And Standard Chartered published a $100,000 end of 2024 forecast for Bitcoin back in April on the view of the so-called crypto winter when it was over. But one of the bank's top FX analysts said there was now a 20% upside to that call. Why is that? Well, Standard Chartered said the rationale for its prediction price-wise was that miners who mint the 900 new Bitcoins produced each day around the world would soon need to sell fewer to cover their costs, mostly electricity to power the supercomputers. And he estimated that miners have recently been selling 100% of their new coins. If the price hits $50,000 though, they would probably only need to sell 20 to 30% of their coins to maintain supply. And so it is the equivalent of miners reducing the amount of Bitcoin they sell per day to just 180 to 270 from 900 currently, which is massive. And currently on the community section, we also posted this because, things that happen in crypto this month that are the catalyst for this is June 5th, SEC sues Binance. Everyone was panicking and taking money out of the markets. June 6th, followed up by Coinbase. And then the resurgence was, when Bitcoin fell below 25, BlackRock filed for the spot Bitcoin ETF. This has been covered all of the news. I don't need to talk too much about this, but Fidelity planned to file spot Bitcoin ETF. Then also EDX Markets was launched and backed by massive companies like Citadel, Fidelity, Schwab, right? June 21st, Fed Chair Jerome Powell says crypto has staying power as an asset class. And June 26th, June 23rd, sorry, I'm getting excited here, but June 23rd, the SEC approved the first leverage Bitcoin futures ETF. And then June 23rd, Bitcoin hit 31K. So how much longer are we going to hover at 31K? Well, look at this. Grayscale Bitcoin Trust discount narrows to the lowest since May of 2022. And the discount to net asset value for the $19 billion plus Grayscale Bitcoin Trust continues to narrow in the wake of asset manager BlackRock's application to open their spot Bitcoin ETF in the US. And the discount to NAV has ballooned to nearly 50% last year and spent most of 2023 in a range of either side of 40%, but begin a steep, narrow trend following BlackRock's mid-June filing with the SEC, and it fell to as low as 26% at one point last week, the trimmest level since May of 2022, and currently sits at about 27%, according to data from YCharts. Now, BlackRock's move for their spot Bitcoin ETF set off a number of filing and refiling for similar funds from a number of other industry actors, including fellow asset management giant Fidelity. And the move by such powered players have raised investor hopes that the SEC will finally approve a spot Bitcoin ETF after years of rejections. And so this is all hopeful, obviously, because the SEC hasn't approved them yet. But that in turn has fueled buying in the heavily discounted Grayscale Bitcoin BTC, which Grayscale nearly 2 years ago filed to convert to a spot Bitcoin ETF. And the Grayscale filing was among those SEC rejections, prompting the company to sue the agency with a decision expected by the end of Q3. Now, lawyers for the Grayscale trial right now on Monday added to their case with a court filing noting the SEC is in late June approved a leveraged Bitcoin futures-based ETF, an even riskier product than previously approved Bitcoin futures ETFs. And while optimism for the SEC approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF is running high at the moment, continued investor caution could be warranted. I had a really good laugh when we saw the BlackRock spot Bitcoin ETF filing come out, said the CEO and founder of Octavio, appearing on CoinDesk TV this morning. He took note that the BlackRock fund seeks to use Coinbase as its crypto custodian, even as the exchange is facing this lawsuit with the SEC. So there's something happening behind the scenes they're not telling everyone about. And obviously the world's a stage, but XRP is seeing a big price spike in social dominance compared to other cryptocurrencies to start the new week with, Bitcoin and Shiba Inu trending as well too. And so for those of you that are part of the Shiba Inu army, in early hours of Monday, there was a significant uptick despite the XRP price decline. Experts at Sentiment believe that the probability of recovery in XRP price increases with the rise in social dominance. As seen in the chart above, the spike in social dominance is the largest increase since May, and XRP's price is likely to rally in the short term. And there's higher probability of XRP price recovering from the decline in June. And because of social dominance, right, I've said this many times, the prices of these cryptocurrencies is primarily dependent on community and marketing more so than utility and function right now, because the world's still too early. I mean, look at Cardano. Like, what are these cryptocurrencies really doing in the world right now that has really been applied? Not much. Most of it is like 5-10 years out. Like, do you actually use them daily and just transferring back and forth? Like, transferring back and forth is the biggest use case, obviously, for XRP, but other cryptocurrencies that are like banking the unbanked and all that stuff, we're still years out from all of this stuff. So a lot of it is speculation. A lot of it is hype, community, culture, tribalism. It's all tribalism is what it is. That's how everything grows. That's how sports teams grows. You see these massive religions, they grow from tribalism. And so an ex-SEC director says it's reasonable for Judge Torres to lock Ripple's XRP escrow accounts forever. Now let's read this. I'm going to cover this and let me know your guys' thoughts on this, because as the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit approaches its end, all the community members in the XRP army have been sharing a dream ruling scenario for this case. So we're going to talk about that, and I'll talk about most accurate scenario, because in recent Twitter discussions, Mark Fagel, who's a former regional director of the SEC's San Francisco office, agreed with an opinion from an XRP community member regarding the upcoming SEC versus Ripple ruling. So what is the dream ruling? Well, in what was tagged as his dream ruling, the XRP enthusiast said he wishes that Judge Annalisa Torres would levy a fine against Ripple for initially offering XRP as a security. The user claimed that he has gone through Ripple's emails and believes that the company deserves to be fined. Furthermore, Jack also wishes that the judge orders the majority of XRP in Ripple's escrow accounts to be handed over to the SEC and locked forever. Now, why would that be a good thing? Because in return, he said, moving forward, the judge should declare all circulating XRP as a commodity. Interestingly enough, the tweet attracted Fagel's attention, who noted that the user's dream ruling for SEC versus Ripple case sounds reasonable enough. If the SEC got their crypto locked it away forever, that would be good news for the circulating supply, right? Because the demand would go up. Now, Fagel has been vocal about the SEC versus Ripple legal battle. Last month, he appeared in a crypto law broadcast with pro-XRP lawyers John Deaton and Jeremy Hogan, and the trio discussed the implications of Hidman's emails on the ongoing SEC versus Ripple lawsuit. And he served as the SEC regional director for nearly 16 years. And regarding William Hidman's infamous speech, it's been frustrating for him as an alumni. So Ripple is likely to win the SEC case. Meanwhile, he's commented on other issues regarding the SEC versus Ripple case. According to him, the SEC has a better argument on whether Ripple violated Section 5 of the Securities Act. Interestingly, he still believes Ripple is more likely to win the lawsuit. He said there are various reasons that makes Ripple the favorite to win the case. However, he did not reveal any of those reasons, but you guys know the majority of those reasons. And the disclaimer for this, right? This information should not be considered financial advice, obviously, guys. When you look at these charts and all of a sudden you start thinking, and I give you this information, all of a sudden you start thinking that this is for sure going to happen. And all of a sudden, because, we see the MACD and we see the histogram turn positive, that all of a sudden it's going to do something like this. And we're going to see the price surge and do something like that. That doesn't necessarily mean that will happen, because at any moment, as we teeter on the brink of another recession with the Fed, that could cause a damper on the markets. And, as the new variant strain for another pandemic goes out there, you saw what happened to the markets right there. That's why I feel like they're planning something. Bill Gates and the elite of the world, they need something else to happen. And there's a few things that are good for business, and that's war and that's pandemics, because it congregates the smaller businesses into the larger businesses. And they want to congregate, even if somebody out there believes that they don't want to congregate like small banks into big banks, the fact of the matter is it's happening. The fact of the matter is small businesses go out of business, big businesses get more powerful because they scoop them up, because they have unlimited funds and unlimited resources. And what is the entity that has the largest unlimited resources on the planet? Well, it's the Fed, because they can print their way out of their own problems. They don't have to pay off their own debt. They just print their way to pay off their own debt. And who faces the fallout for that? Everybody else, right? Every other country. And so with crypto, it is that solution to escape the matrix.